call meeting to order.
Burrows.
Yes.
Laughlin.
Yeah.
Marino.
Yes.
Shield. Yes. Vargas. Yes. We have a quorum.
And I get a motion to approve the agenda, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
A second. I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, agenda approved. Communication and visitors. This is the time when community members can make public comments to the board. Please be aware that the board cannot comment on anything that is said during this time. This is the only time in the agenda reserved for open public comment. Please limit comments to 4 minutes. And also under policy 204.141D, the total span can be limited to 30 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I'm Jean Reynolds. I live on Terrace Lane. I've lived in this community since 2009. So after reviewing some materials in our school libraries, I became very concerned for the West Liberty youth. I was very impressed with the parents who spoke on July 18th at the school board meeting regarding this pornography. I've heard a few misrepresentations of what they addressed, so I thought it was important to restate the positions I heard. Our state laws protect minors from obscenity. This should include school libraries. That's from Criminal Code 728 of the Iowa Code. The Board of Education is legally responsible for all materials in the district. Your policy 603.4. School board administration has the authority to remove materials that are not appropriate. Policy 603.4 again. The superintendent has responsibility for developing procedures for selection of material in media centers. Policy 604.4. The reconsideration process was never designed to include pornography, as evidenced by the inclusion of students in the review process. That's policy 603.5. Pornography can have a very damaging effect on children and the relationship for years to come. Parents do not want to subject any minors to pornography, and that includes the review process. School administration has removed numerous books for a wide variety of reasons. Should they not act to protect West Liberty children from pornography? Parents have taken all these concerns directly to principals and to the superintendent. Parents are focused on pornography and clearly stated this has nothing to do with GSA or Rainbow. Parents did not request or even mention any employment actions. They focus solely on the removal of pornography. Some more support among the community is growing rapidly and has increased since that presentation. Parents voice support for the Superintendent Kruger and are asking for immediate action within his scope of authority. Now to add my personal opinion. Cannot the goals of inclusion be accomplished without use of pornography as a hook to attract young students? Cannot we all acknowledge that pornography is dangerous regardless of the broader content, the materials, or the overall goal? Can we not burden children with the weight of over-sexualization? Can we not all agree that pornography does not prevent abuse, harassment, or suicide? Cannot this community unite to protect all children, ensuring they are treated with dignity and respect? Can we not agree how precious their lives are now and in the future? Thank you.
Good evening to each of the board members, superintendent. My name, of course, is Chris Martin. I'm here tonight because I'm exhausted by these comments that have been made about literature in school libraries. I'm exhausted because there's misinformation and a fight about books. Voluntary reading provided as an option for students to read, not required reading. The Bluest Eye, one of the suggested pornographic books, was written by Nobel Prize winning author Toni Morrison, which I do believe qualifies her as competent and qualified, and has been selected by the College Board as a book on the AP Literature reading list, which is an option for our students, but never required. None of the books in question are mandatory reading, nor are they part of the middle school or high school curriculum. I checked. Also, I did hear one comment at the last meeting that none of this argument has to do with sexual and gender minority students or the GSA. But I will highlight that the books identified by this group are all written about being gay or written by queer authors. I'm not interested in poking holes in the arguments of the folks who've spoken before. well, maybe that's not totally true. One hole I would like to widen is that the definition of porn provided by both Merriam-Webster and Oxford Dictionary requires that sexual content that is considered porn must be produced for the purpose of sexual gratification. I hope no one finds Toni Morrison's writing to be sexually gratifying. Toni Morrison writes about challenging material, which sometimes has sexual content. Is it always easy to read? Nope. Is it sometimes that what happens in the world? Yep. Closing our eyes and our minds won't make it not happen. We cannot keep our students from learning about challenging and difficult subject matter. We have to teach the history of the Holocaust, of hundreds of years of enslaving Black and brown folks, wars and famine. It's all important to understand who we are, where we've been, so we don't repeat it. Taking this literature from our school library only seeks to stop our students from being ready for a complex world. Policy 603.4 states, inclusion of profanity or frank treatment of sex should not automatically rule out books or other materials. It does, however, necessitate a searching evaluation of the merits. Literary quality, I've handed out a handout of literary quality. Truth to life, sex is part of life, that's why we're all here. Relevance to the curriculum, English literature and contemporary social issues are just two of the courses in the curriculum that these books are supported in, and that material in question may possess. What I propose is we use all of this energy spent to reduce access to literature to help the students in this district who are being abused, exploited, and who are otherwise vulnerable, rather than stopping all students from access to literature. I would rather have a student traumatized by what they read rather than what they've experienced. Let's change our focus to supporting the vulnerable students in this district in positive and loving ways. Let's support the amazing teachers in this district and the great work that they're doing to guide our students through academics and social lives. Let's leave the literature as optional reading, which you can opt out of as parents if you would like your child not to read it. Let's all opt in to helping all students, including the LGBTQAI+ students and allies. This should be our focus, supporting all students in their journey from adolescence to adulthood. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Velez. I live down on North Calhoun in the house that my great-grandparents bought about 100 years ago. So I've been around a while. And I work for the Orland Spiegel Puppet Theater Company. And I have a 6th grader at the West Liberty Middle School. He is a delightful child with hair like down to his waist, and he's spectacularly brilliant, and I'm delighted by him every day. And as a puppeteer, I work with the elementary and middle school students several times a year. And I make it my job to try and create a safe place for personal and artistic expression. I am on some days more or less successful at that, but I am always trying. And I'm here because it has come to my attention that some parents in the district are trying to bully school libraries into removing necessary literature from the shelves. They have been describing this literature as pornographic, and I am terribly confused by that, as I found absolutely nothing in these books that I would describe as pornographic. One of the books in question is a novel, of course, by Nobel and Pulitzer Prize winning author Toni Morrison, and she definitely doesn't write porn. She just doesn't. And I have serious concerns about the mental health of people who could read these books and see any material there that could be used for personal sexual gratification. If you read The Bluest Eye or Beyond Magenta or Out of the Darkness and saw pornography in it, please talk to your therapist or rent an adult video and learn the difference. This is not pornography by any stretch of the imagination, nor is it in the slightest way inappropriate for our students. And even if it were, there already exists a group of people who have the necessary qualifications to determine whether a book is inappropriate for the school library. These people are called librarians and educators, and we can trust them to do their job. I want library books to be chosen by teachers who have studied literature as well as adolescent development, by the school librarians who work with these kids every day, by public librarians who have access to the entirety of human knowledge, and by experts who read comparatively and critically while granting literary awards to the best and brightest, some of whom, like award-winning author George M. Johnson and Nobel winner Toni Morrison, a favorite of the Oprah Book Club, are on that books we'd like to ban list, which is insane. You will notice that among the individuals and institutions that I've listed above as being qualified to determine the contents of public school libraries, I did not include fundamentalist Christians. Nothing against them, but I don't want the direction of our public schools to be determined by anyone's religious beliefs, including my own. That's just not the place for it. We have separation of church and state, and it is important to me, as it should be to every American. And I do not want anyone's religious belief system to influence the teachings at our public schools. I'm hearing a lot of these book ban supporters talking at length about Iowa law, while completely ignoring the fact that US law has already made this decision. Not only are we guaranteed the separation of church and state, and all these arguments are entirely based on one's fundamentalist beliefs, but literary freedom is also an important part of our freedom of speech. And we need to be very careful never to chip away at our very basic freedoms. Freedom and censorship cannot coexist. History has shown us over and over again that good things don't happen when we give in to those that fear ideas and harass librarians and school board members. Attempts to remove these books are obviously fueled by bigotry, and bigotry has no place in the West Liberty School District, and it never will. And as a side note, perhaps even a little unrelated, I'm just dying to know when we collectively as a society are going to look at homophobia and say, no, it is not a valid position. And no, we do not have to treat it respectfully, because we don't, and it isn't. It is a poison that is destroying our civilized world. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Allie Parsmith. I wasn't actually planning on speaking. I do live over on 3rd Street. I am the library director, but I'm not here speaking on as the library director. I'm speaking as a brand new parent and a new member of the community. I did want to provide some information though, as is my profession. There does seem to be some confusion as to regards to pornography versus obscenity. Pornography, as has been stated, is there for the sexual gratification, whereas obscenity is, I have here in front of me the ALA's Intellectual Freedom and Censorship Question and Answer, which is available readily on their website. I have other resources available from the ALA website, which is the American Library Association, as they are regularly having to deal with issues such as this. So we are here interested in protecting intellectual freedom, which is the right of every individual to both seek and receive information from all points of view without restriction. It provides for free access to all expressions of ideas through which any and all sides of a question, cause, or movement may be explored. We then are also talking about censorship. Censorship is the suppression of ideas and information that certain persons, individuals, groups, or government officials find objectionable or dangerous. It is no more complicated than someone saying, don't let anyone read this book or buy that magazine or view that film because I object to it. Censors try to use the power of the state to impose their view of what is truthful and appropriate or offensive and objectionable on everyone else. Censors pressure public institutions like libraries to suppress and remove from public access information they judge inappropriate or dangerous, so that no one else will have the chance to read or review the material and make up their own minds about it. The censor wants to prejudge materials for everyone. We then talk about the relationship between censorship and intellectual freedom. In expressing their opinions and concerns, the would-be censors are exercising the same rights that librarians seek to protect when they confront censorship. In making their criticisms known, people who object to certain ideas are exercising the same rights as those who created and disseminated the materials to which they object. Their rights to voice opinions and try to persuade others to adopt those opinions is protected only if the rights of the person to express the ideas they despise are also protected. The rights of both sides must be protected or neither will survive. So I'm very pleased that we're having this discourse in West Liberty. However, I don't believe that books should be banned. When it comes to these books being described as pornography, I think it's from both Stephanie and Chris's statements. You can see they don't meet the definition of pornography. They're not there for sexual gratification. I think the question is whether or not they meet the definition of obscenity. The Supreme Court came up with a decision, I'm not sure which decision it was, told us that material is not obscene unless a judge or jury finds that an average person applying contemporary community standards would find the material appeals to the prurient interest in sex, that it depicts or describes certain sexual acts defined in state law in a patently offensive way, and that a reasonable person would find that the material lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. All three of these elements must be present for the materials to be judged as obscene and therefore illegal. As far as I'm aware, no judge or jury has made any such statements regarding the books that are on this list. Thank you.
I don't have a list like they do, but I do have an opinion. I have another, and I have another perspective on banning these books. I disagree with banning books from the library. If we start, where do we stop? My other belief is that these kids aren't getting their information only from a book in a library. They have all kinds of other sources. I'm a retired nurse, a mom, a grandma, and a great grandma. And if I want to make bread pudding with raisins, I don't go to the library and look and buy books. I Google it. And pretty soon I have 10 recipes for bread pudding with raisins. Young people are much better at finding things on the internet than I am. Much better. I was told years ago that you could look on the internet and find a way to make an illegal drug that you could sell. I'm certain that the students with access to phones, tablets, and computers can see whatever they're interested in finding. I don't believe banning books will protect anyone. They start with these objectionable books, and then we move on to more. I think that if you really want to see what you can find on the internet, you look at the list that they gave you of the obscene things and Google it, because I bet you'll find it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Deborah Lohman. I've been a librarian since 2002, a public librarian for 17 years, and the current Associate Dean of Libraries for Eastern Iowa Community Colleges. Through the previous comments heard at school board meetings, it has come to my attention that there are community individuals who would like to have library materials removed from the shelves, but are asking for a departure from the formal process for reconsideration of materials as outlined in your Code 603. I recognize Code 602.17 that emphasizes the importance of a global education that includes world issues and problems. I also recognize Code 602.19 that emphasizes the importance of health education and that health education instruction shall adapt at each grade level and respects all human growth and development, not just those who identify as heterosexual cisgender. I recognize the commitment of the school district as reflected in their policies on diversity and inclusion to make special efforts to recognize those Black, African American, Hispanic, and Asian cultures that are in our community. With that acknowledgement also comes the recognition that the histories of the marginalized are not pleasant, nor necessarily conditions of the past, but rather ongoing struggles. At this juncture in our societal discourse, we acknowledge the importance of an original narrator and the own voices in literature, everything from history books to memoirs. In recognizing all of the aforementioned, it follows then that support for these school initiatives will also be reflected in the library collections at all levels of the district. I also call the board's attention and bring for your perusal Iowa House File 2577, sections number 5 through 22, that call for a school district to have a public catalog. Check. Instructions on the internet showing the procedures for reconsideration of materials. Check. And which requires a school district to provide protocols for review, selection, reconsideration, and removal of materials. Check, check, and check. I congratulate the succession of librarians and administrators that have led the district thus far, employing qualified master's degree level librarians who have received education in collection development, selection of materials from vetted publishers and literary review publications, and deaccession policies based on age, content, and circulation statistics. Current practices also include routine diversity audits to ensure that all voices from the student population are heard among the stacks. Your MLS librarians are educated, qualified, and required to continuously keep current on the dialogue and discourse of the publishing world, more so than any other professional in your school district. They are who you want guiding your library collections, and they have the support of the Library of Congress and the American Library Association, who direct and provide resources to member librarians in the State Library of Iowa. The State Library of Iowa provides continuing education, certification, and accredits libraries holding to a rubric of quality, policy, and procedures in line with the state of Iowa and federal government. Your librarians and school administrators have equipped the district with all of the policy, procedure, and protocol that you need to handle reconsideration of materials. More so, your protocol specifically outlines community member demographics, which ensures that diverse voices are populating the decision-making table. Those voices include a student council member. That is essential. In no way should the district attempt to stifle student input. If a student doesn't wish to sit on the reconsideration committee, they always have the option to recuse themselves, but to assume they have no valuable input is unacceptable.
That's your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Move to the next section. Agenda, central administration.
Request present and no interest.
Then we move to the public hearing on the proposal to use save revenue for an athletic facility infrastructure project. This is the time, place, and date to hold a hearing on the proposed use of save revenue for an athletic facility infrastructure project. If there's any public comment, now is the time. Okay. Hearing none, I'll declare the hearing closed. And we will move to resolution supporting the proposed use of the save revenue. Is there further details of how to say that? It says there will be full resolution language. If there's nothing specific,
It's just exactly
the
what
same
it's
thing.
on
Okay.
D. Yeah.
Perfect. I'll make a motion to approve the full resolution language. And a second.
I'll second that.
Roll call vote.
Burrows,
Yes.
Walkland,
Yes.
Moreno,
Yes.
Shield. Yes. Parties.
Yes.
Perfect. Motion carries for resolution to support the proposed use of save revenue for the athletic facility infrastructure project. And we'll move to first reading of board policy 504.31R to 504.31E2. These are just revisions in line with IASB and the required updates by the state.
Is this the one with the medical though that I was gonna ask about? Yes.
Yes.
So does they have to have a separate one then for children above 18 that wouldn't have parental? That wouldn't need parental signatures if they're above 18, do we need a separate form for them?
So we'll have to look at the verbiage to see if they can sign for themselves, because a lot of forms will say parent or self.
I don't see anything.
It's just the parent or guardian.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so
all
let's
I
look
saw.
at the wording on that.
We can double check on that.
Just
Yeah,
double checking, just because some seniors are.
and then
above
do
18.
we, Abby, by process, do we need then another first reading, or can the changes happen and then we second readings satisfactory? Okay, perfect. So we'll get that edited and.
Well, at
send
least
that
looked
out
into.
For review. Yep.
Yeah, just making sure we have all that.
Yeah,
covered.
to make sure that they're clear too. Yep. That's a good idea. Okay, and then if is there anything else on that one?
No, not one, no.
Okay.
The other one.
606.2 to 606.3, open enrollment. This is all, again, in line with IASB and some of the new legislation around removing deadlines for open enrollment. That there's nothing that we can do to change it. This is what it is. So just updating that policy. There's nothing else there. Any questions or thoughts on that one? Then the last one for our first reading is 803.1R1. And then looks like
Yeah, so this is an addendum to the purchasing and bidding policy, just in line with. It's come up because we're getting so many federal funds now that people are using for bigger projects. So that's kind of why it's more relevant now. And so it's just going over all of the rules of that. It was brought to my attention by our auditors. So I looked into different area schools and looked at IASB and kind of covered all that. And
This is from the school board, Iowa.
Yeah, I mean, it's all based on,
So the whole one is new, because usually it's
this
in
is,
red.
yeah, it's
This
an
whole-
So this one is
addendum.
all new.
Yeah, it's all red,
Right.
yeah. I
It's
did
all
this
red.
instead of Kara.
And we just can't see.
Yeah,
It's all right.
it should all be red, is what I meant. Yeah. So
I mean, effectively, all it says is that you shouldn't have a conflict of interest with board members. You have to get approval to use federal funds. It's kind of the same stuff as everything else that's already in our policy. It just relates directly to
Yeah.
federal funds.
Yeah, and it's all rules from the
Yeah.
federal government, that's basically. has to
Again,
be-
non-negotiable stuff.
Yeah,
Okay, and then if there's no questions on that, then we can move on to Sean's report.
Just a couple things, facility updates, like somebody mentioned earlier, footings have gone in for the new ELC building. There was a drone picture of that today. I think Brian flew the drone over and took some recordings of that. So we get a nice aerial view of the progress on the ELC footings. Bids for mass grading will go out soon. There'll be a pre-construction meeting at 9 o'clock on August 17th. To answer any questions that contractors may have. And then bids will be due August 30th and they'll be opened up at 10 a.m. And we'll determine at that time the lowest bid and we'll move on for board approval. Following the bids for mass grading, and we'll work on the fields, all the above ground work and getting the bids documents prepared for that, finalized so that we can get those out. And then again, I just want to thank the community for all of the generosity towards and support towards this athletic complex. We certainly couldn't do it without the community support. Registration, it's that time of year and just a reminder that you can register your children online. I encourage you to do so, but you can also go to the buildings for assistance if assistance is needed. You can also pay your fees online. Hopefully there's no fines. You may pay your fees online using the online payment system on the West Liberty website. And last, we had a nice, I'd say, positive and productive DLT, BLT meeting today. This afternoon. So all of our district leadership team members came in. This is follow-up from our two-day meeting that we had back in June that was facilitated by our AEA consultants. And so we brought in our building leadership teams to work in conjunction with the district leadership teams on taking those big general goal areas and then turning those into building plans and action plans of how the buildings are going to then accomplish working towards a building improvement and meeting those goals. So I think that was a very productive meeting. Everybody there was very positive, a lot of positive energy, a lot of great work accomplished this afternoon. That is it.
Thank you, Sean.
I had a question. Looks
Yes.
like we have some visitors here, some new administrative people. Can they share a little bit about themselves? And
Yeah, absolutely. Did you guys, that'd be okay to too? Kurt,
put
you
you
want
on
to
the spot
start?
here.
I suppose, do I need to stand there? Okay, just stay right-
Yeah, honestly,
bow tie for your first meeting?
yeah, solid. I liked it.
Want to make an entrance, I guess?
Little
that himself.
Whittled it myself, no. I'm Kirk Ryan, I'm the new elementary and ELC principal. I'm very excited to be a part of this district. It's actually about 13 years ago, I did my practicum in this district when second grade was still at the ELC. And I talked about this in my interview. I remember leaving and thinking, wow, I would love to work in this district. And my mom actually worked in this district for about 5-6 years at the elementary as a counselor. And she still has nothing but amazing things to say. And is retiring in 2 years and is looking for a place on the golf course. So she would love to come back and be a part of this community as well. And so I'm really excited. I've already been working with my assistant principal, Dawn Cruz, and we had 55, I think, one-on-one meetings with staff members from both buildings. Wanted to really get to know staff, but also know what we can do to start supporting staff right away and have some great takeaways with that. Going to do some CPI training with Andrew, going to Des Moines for 3 days to become certified trainers, to come back and work with staff to help train so that we have some great behavior things happening in the district with that. So that's one of the first things that came from those one-on-one meetings is teachers wanted some more training within that. So wanted to be able to provide that for them. So that's.
Kurt, could you explain just real briefly
Oh, yeah.
CPI for those? that aren't
CPI is
sure?
Crisis Prevention Institute is what it stands for. And so it basically is it's an 8-hour program. They're going to do about 2 to 4 hours, depending on how fast they work on their own online. And then we're going to do 4 hours of in-person training as well. And the basis of it is to work through how to de-escalate situations. And CPI works not just with kids, but they work with even with adults, with everywhere around the US. And there's many different institutes that do this besides CPI, but the ultimate goal is to help de-escalate so that you don't have to have any hands-on with students. And that so knowing that just my position, if I'm standing face to face with you right now, it's a position of authority, but with standing side to side, having a conversation is less threatening, helps de-escalate with kids and ultimately keep them in classrooms learning rather than having to remove students and then they are not where we want them to be. So that's kind of a very, very brief overview of what that is.
Thank you.
So, but excited to be here and look forward to working with y'all.
Was that just for teachers or are paras going to train too?
Paras as well. Yep, it was for all, it was actually, I want all 75 staff members at the ELC and elementary are going to be a part of it. And I know we've got about 20-ish at both the middle school and high school as well that are going to be doing. So about 115 people in the district that will be training over 2 days of in-person, then depending on how long they want to, that 2 to 4 before they have to do that before they do the in-person training. So great question. Thanks again, appreciate it.
Thank you.
I know.
Hello, my name is Andrew Gens. I'm the new assistant principal at the high school, and I've been involved in education for 13 years, 11 years as a math teacher at Wise Muscatine, and then 2 years at Wise Muscatine as an instructional coach. And within that position as an instructional coach, I've been doing a lot of things hands-on with teachers on tech integration, instruction, things like that. And so it's been an awesome experience there, and I have really enjoyed my transition here to West Liberty and doing some of the similar things that I'll be doing as assistant principal. I'm looking forward to, Brendan and I have been working a lot on tech integration, taking some of those things that we do through paper at the school that we're going to now implement at the high school. So I'm really excited about that. And really be data driven. So being the math side that I enjoyed for 11 years, I'm all about just data and putting it together and making it very accessible to people. So that's one aspect of where we'll make a huge impact. And like I said, West Liberty has been a great place so far. I mean, everybody's been extremely welcoming and I've really enjoyed it. And I've heard, like I said, nothing but great things about West Liberty, even working in Louisa. And so every time I say I'm going to West Liberty, we're like, oh, that's a great school district. So I'm really proud to be part of this. And thank you. So,
Thanks. Thank you.
Personnel. We've got 2 resignations, Kelly Butcher, high school librarian, and GSA sponsor, Jennifer, get it wrong,
Clendenning.
Clendenning, thank you, appreciate that, high school math teacher. New hires, Dorian Reese, the high school para, Maya Anderson, elementary para, Marsha Jacobs, elementary para, Sequoia Molina, elementary para, Audra Hike, high school assistant volleyball coach, and Nicole Brownlet, elementary para.
I want to say that it's always sad to see somebody go, but I am definitely sad to see Kelly Butcher go. She definitely was someone that really motivated my child to read. So I will miss having her. And I know we talked about this in the email with such short, the math and the librarian. Are we gonna just because with the math one, or do we have a sub for that one? And then kind of just overview of the plan for Butcher's position too.
So maybe Brenda, you want to speak to the math position first?
Sure, yeah, so we intend to advertise and see, but we do have a plan in place that we can move someone into that position that's already qualified, has their math endorsement.
Okay, so we don't have a long-term sub for that.
We
We'll have a
would
staff
not,
member.
we would have a highly qualified teacher that we could move into that position.
And that person will be coming from an area that doesn't necessarily require a certified teacher, so then we could replace that person that's moving to math with a non-certified.
Yeah.
So we're not really losing any ground there.
So are you gonna permanently move the person into math or still keep looking for math?
Sean and I haven't really talked about whether it'd be involuntary or voluntary yet,
Oh, okay.
so I can't answer that for sure yet.
Okay, I'm just curious. And then with Butchers, I remember in your email something about working with AA and other things, and then what are some of the other plans?
Yeah, so until we get that replaced and get a certified librarian on our roster, then Brenda and Andrew have been working with our AA. We've met with our AAA already, the Mississippi Bend AAA Library Media Specialist Consultant that works for the whole region of 20-some districts that they serve. And I know they've been working also with that person as well. So just to help keep us going and moving forward.
I'm curious, like we have some strong library connections in this room right now.
Yeah.
And a map.
Yeah, at first I thought he was taking over the math, but you know.
You like to, I don't mind. Probably busy, you know.
Busy enough, yeah.
Any other questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Make a motion to approve. A second.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Future agenda items. The next board meeting will be August 15th, at 6 p.m. We'll have the consent agenda and FFA update, reviewing the facility usage fees, 21-22 enrollment update, and then a superintendent report. As always, if there's anything that comes up, let us know. We'll get it added to the agenda. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
And second. A second. All in favor, say aye.
And you.
Aye. Adjourned at 6:36.
I know, we just.